Good afternoon and welcome back. The program will begin in 10 minutes. The program will begin in 5 minutes. Please take your seats. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our next session. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Suzanne Malik McKenna, Senior Director of the University of Illinois System and Coordinator of SRI.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. All right. It's been such a great day. I hope you've been as inspired as I have from the very beginning with One Health, all the way through phenomenal programs, the Environmenters Science Project, so many wonderful things. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe got to see the sunshine in the river as part of it as well. So, thank you for joining us for what I know will be one of the most meaningful and necessary conversations of this Congress. If you recall yesterday, Carol Marine introduced us to words that we're reminding ourselves about all week long. Yesterday was solutions and actions. Today is community and collaboration. Our participants for this plenary are going to teach us much about what this genuinely and intentionally means. We have fantastic collaborators here at SRI and collaboration practitioners in this plenary and amongst our partners. This morning, we gave a shout out to those amazing environmenters, high school age scientists with PhD level curiosity and tenacity. Right now, I'd like to feature EPIC-N. EPIC-N is a groundbreaking collaboration where member programs partner with local governments and community, breaking collaboration where member programs partner with local governments and community organizations to address community-identified issues through university student coursework. EPIC-N has members in the US, Latin America, Asia, and Africa. They have about 100 programs locally who have completed more than 2,500 projects in 400 communities. Please seek out EPIC-N at their table and through their programs here. Maybe you'll become the next EPIC-N community partner. Just a quick reminder as we head into the afternoon. Don't forget that live interpretation is available. Quick check your Whova or scan the QR code to access it in your preferred language. Use the Whova app to keep up with the latest schedule, session information, and real-time updates. Submit your questions through the Whova Q&A tool. Ink Factory is still capturing our thinking. I hope you've seen them outside, and again, with the themes we're talking about. So Monday was solutions and actions. Today is collaboration and community. Tomorrow will be resilience, and Thursday will be hope. We want to know what that means to you, especially in the lens of sustainability and innovation. So we hope you'll stop over there and have them draw some beautiful perspectives and art that goes along with your thinking. And of course, keep sharing your moments on social with hashtag SRI2025. We love seeing your perspectives. Now, this session we're about to begin centers on a principle that must guide all of our work. Indigenous knowledge systems for sovereignty, for lived experiences, and for the right communities to shape how science is done with them, not to them, and led by them. Their lived experience, their knowledge, needs to drive what we learn. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, someone who brings both academic expertise and lived experience to this topic. Dr. Angela Walden is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and visiting special advisor on Native students at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Dr. Walden is trained as a clinical psychologist and mixed methods researcher. She is a fierce advocate, you are going to see that in a moment, for Indigenous-centered approach, research, education, and healing. Please join me in welcoming Angela Walden. Get it, right up there.
CO. Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Angela Walden, and thank you so much for joining us today for this very important session. It is my pleasure to serve as your moderator I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves in a moment. Before I do that, I want to give you all just a bit of background on what has led up to the conversation that we're having today. The Indigenous, local, and Afro-descendant people, PICLAs, and Spanish leaders from the Latin American countries who participated in SRI 2023, held in Panama, co-created a declaration that contains recommendations on how to pursue more ethical scientific agendas within and beyond SRI. This plenary aims at addressing several of their recommendations, specifically a dedicated event to address concerns about ontological and epistemic extractivism and the appropriation of ancestral sub-wisdom for mercantilist purposes or that reproduce oppressive models of life. That's a lot, right? Extractivism is produced through the lack of reciprocity in any activity or practice, and ultimately those become harmful for knowledge holders, territories, and Mother Earth. So this harmful lack of reciprocity has been expanded into research and engagement with Indigenous peoples, taking knowledge, wisdom, stories, plants, and other elements from Indigenous territories without any form of reciprocity or community engagement. So this plays out in many spaces and sectors, unfortunately. And these issues are of high importance to Indigenous peoples around the world, and we recognize that these conversations can be uncomfortable at times. We're here to encourage everyone to stay engaged and approach conversations in partnership toward the goal of centering Indigenous voices and perspectives. So we cannot do this work without support from one another. So thank you for being here and for engaging in that conversation. Okay, I am so honored to be joined by 4 brilliant panelists whose work and lived experiences reflect this commitment. So would you please join me in welcoming Rubiela Barnett Rivera, Executive Director of Caribbean Cultural Institute. Okay. This is, okay, Heather Soyak Jean Kwamboka Gordon, social science researcher and member of the native village of Eklutna. Oh, okay. Sorry, our order got a little bit funky here. Adeyemi Oladwapo Arema, professor and ethnobotany researcher focused on traditional knowledge systems. Rubiela Barnett Riviera, amazing. And Sergio Romero Nina, biologist and indigenous advocate from Bolivia. So, thank you so much, everyone, and apologies for my misordering there. If you have a question for our panelists, please remember that you can ask by scanning the QR code on the screen there. Just you can submit your question there. We will do our best to address as many as time allows during this discussion. So, you know, I'm going to turn it over to the experts here. I would like for our panelists to please quickly introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are. And it doesn't have to be quick. You know, we got time.
Okay, I'll start. Hi, everybody. My name's Heather Soyak Jean Kwamboka Gordon. I'm a Inupiaq. I'm a tribal member of the Nome Eskimo community. I'm not sure how Eklutna got up there. That's pretty random. I also married into a Kisi tribal family from Kenya. I have a degree in Indigenous Studies and Sustainability Science, and I work directly with Indigenous communities and their partners in the U.S. and in the Arctic.
Okay, no, thank you so much. The name is Adeyemi Oladapo Aremu, proudly Nigeria, Yoruba by birth, and currently based in South Africa. I'm also a South African citizen, so I'm African in totality. So my degree is in ethnobotany. I'm a research professor in Northwest University. I've been working with indigenous people for the last 10 years. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rubiela Barnett. I am from the Kuna indigenous people of Panama, and I am project manager of indigenous people project communities about biodiversity, conservation, sustainability, and entrepreneurship also. And I am working with them since 15 years ago.
Gracias. Avisarles que prendan el traductor, por favor, porque yo voy a hablar completamente en español. Así que antes les pasaron el QR. Buenas tardes, con el permiso de los ancestros y los abuelos aquí también presentes. Mi nombre es Sergio Richardo Meronina, yo soy del territorio indígena Charcas del Estado Plurinacional de Bolivia. Actualmente soy coordinador del Observatorio Intergeneracional del Acuerdo de Escazú y también soy parte de CADEC, que es una institución boliviana que trabaja en la reconstitución de los saberes ancestrales. Gracias.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's get into it. I have some questions for our panelists, and then of course we hope we will have some questions from the audience, but that's up to you all, so help us out there. I'm going to start by asking our panelists, why are we discussing ethical research, particularly extractivism? Why is that important? Why are we talking about this?
Yeah, I'll be happy to kick us off. So we've been talking about this panel for the last 3 months, so we do have way more to say than we're able. I just want to put that out there. There's been extensive, histories of extractive research, and I know there's a lot of belief we're kind of post that. We're in a post-colonial world, we're past all of that. We're really not, and there's a lot of harms that still happen through research. Whether it's, I've talked to communities where rocks were removed for geology and they were never brought back. Whether it's something like that, and often that's just based on not knowing an indigenous way of knowing and the value that the land has to stay where the land is. We also see results being given to media prior to being contextualized and discussed with the community. A lot of things that seem really egregious still happen, but then there's also a lot of subtle things where scientists go to work in a community and don't take the time to first learn about that community, the history, what's happened there, and through their very work re-traumatize and re-cause harm in that community by replicating some of the past events that have happened. So there's a lot of different ways that these type of harms happen, and that's why we're talking about ethical research in collaboration, in engagement, and in the homework that's expected of researchers and scientists prior to working in our communities.
Ya. Bueno, voy a compartirles ahora en español para poder inspirarme mejor. Al hablar de ética en la investigación, para mí representa hablar de valores, la importancia de trabajar con valores, valores de respeto, valores de sostenibilidad. Para los pueblos indígenas es muy importante el trabajar desde la conservación, protección, porque tenemos que impactar de manera positiva las nuevas futuras generaciones. Para nosotros es muy importante dirigirnos, enfocarnos en esa dirección. Y por eso es importante romper paradigmas, que la investigación científica integre, sea interdisciplinario, sea intercultural, es importante. Les puedo dar el ejemplo, yo vivo en isla, yo vivo por el Mar Caribe, soy de Panamá, soy del pueblo cuna de Panamá, y nosotros hemos tenido una experiencia muy, muy difícil en los últimos años, porque al vivir en mar, rodeados de mares, hemos sido el primer grupo indígena que hemos tenido que vivir las consecuencias del incremento del nivel del mar. Esto ha conllevado investigaciones, estudios que se han hecho paralelos junto a nosotros, pero es importante conocer, cuando se hace un estudio, conocer el porqué de las cosas. ¿Por qué? Yo soy científica, yo soy química, y como tal yo conozco que la ciencia requiere procedimientos, requiere protocolos, y los pueblos indígenas también tenemos sistemas de conocimientos, aunque son llamados que trabajamos desde la sabiduría ancestral, son conocimientos que nosotros tenemos y que queremos compartir. Para nosotros, la sabiduría no está en los libros, la sabiduría está en el territorio. Como científicos, igual cuando tenemos que hacer alguna investigación, tenemos que ir al campo, indagar, hacer encuestas. Igual acá, para trabajar de una manera ética, con respeto, de manera responsable, es importante conocer el porqué de nuestra sabiduría, de dónde nace, el significado de cada cosa. Y nosotros queremos compartirlo como pueblos indígenas, queremos transmitírselo. ¿Por qué? Porque también queremos ser parte de esa solución y lo hemos sido a través de la investigación en medicina, aportes en farmacia, aportes en la parte agrícola. Hemos aportado bastante, pero necesitamos ser más visibles. Y eso es importante cuando se trabaja desde lo ético, trabajar en comunión, en contacto y desde el respeto.
Okay. No, thank you so much. I will pick up from where she stopped from. There is a popular saying, if you want to feed a man for a day, give him a fish. There is the other saying that if you want to feed him for a lifetime, teach him how to fish. Those two seems correct. But have you asked the man, does he want a fish? Very important. That's the way we approach research. We want to teach them how to fish or feed them. It's totally wrong. This is one of the core important points of ethical research. Yeah. Imagine getting to a community, the people you're trying to work with are called respondents. They are called subjects. It gives you concern. You require this knowledge from them.
Yes.
Where is the respect? Where is the fairness?
Yes.
These are some of the core issues that we are really talking about. Building on what my colleague also said, we talk about biopiracy. I'm from a botany background. Plants are taken from Africa, taken from other bio-rich zones. It's been commercialized. A typical example in South Africa is a plant called Udia that was taken as a growth, it helps with hunger. It was commercialized, and the group that owns that knowledge is called the San ethnic group. They were not aware until the product was in the market. That's a typical biopiracy. We have another plant called Pelargonium. This was driven by the knowledge by the indigenous people. So these are just a few examples, and that's why this discussion is quite important, ethical consideration and research. I can go on and on, but these are just a few examples. Are we part of the problem? Are we part of the solution? How do we approach research in indigenous community? How do we see them? It's not about teaching them how to fish or giving them a fish. Thank you very much.
Yo quiero traer a colación algo que discutíamos, dialogábamos el 2023 en una de las mesas sobre la importancia de no solamente ver al otro. O sea, es importante que los indígenas vengan aquí y compartan lo que saben, pero no solamente para que los científicos nos escuchen, sino también recordar a los científicos cuál ha sido su motivación para incursionar en la ciencia. Alguien nos ha escuchado muy fuerte entonces. Y ahí yo quiero traer sobre la mesa eso, ¿no? La ciencia como tal se ha iniciado como la búsqueda del conocimiento y del saber. Y los que hacen ciencia han empezado ese camino como humanos, como sujetos, en la búsqueda de ser parte de ese ecosistema de la búsqueda del conocimiento y el saber. Pero muchas veces a quienes menos escuchan, y eso decíamos en el 2023, son cuando se trata de los problemas a los científicos y a los pueblos indígenas. Son los sectores menos escuchados cuando se trata de problemas. Por ejemplo, cuando se trata del cambio climático, discuten los políticos, discuten los tomadores de decisión, pero ¿dónde está la ciencia? ¿Solo son creadores de datos? ¿O realmente muchos de ellos ponen su espíritu, su amor, su pasión al construir esos conocimientos, al sistematizar esos conocimientos? Y lo mismo sucede con los pueblos indígenas. Son los sujetos menos escuchados porque ellos no solamente dentro de sí llevan la construcción de su propia vida, de su propio camino, sino también conocimientos de sus ancestros, de sus abuelos, de sus territorios que hablan a través de su cuerpo. Entonces, creo que al hablar de ética, estamos hablando de no solamente tener una estructura de valores, que es importante, sino conectarnos como dos espacios, tanto la ciencia, la academia, como los pueblos indígenas, como dos sectores que juntos pueden construir mejores propuestas ante las diferentes crisis que nos rodean. Tender esos puentes de diálogo en esa pasión que tenemos del conocimiento y del saber, y generando algo que decía Rubiela, el respeto. Porque si no respeto mi amor por la ciencia, por el conocimiento, por el saber, mucho menos voy a respetar el conocimiento, el saber del otro.
Well, thank you so much for those responses. And I think, yeah, of course, yeah. Thank you so much for those responses. I think what's coming forward for me that's very clear is that, we have better outcomes when people listen to us as Indigenous people about what is important for our communities, what is important for us. When we are guides for inquiry and solutions, and yet despite having so much wisdom within our communities, within our ancestral teachings that have been passed on, we are often left out of these very important pieces of leadership. I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about Indigenous science, or Indigenous science through an Indigenous lens. Can you tell me a little bit about how Indigenous people understand science through that lens? And how does this maybe relate to or interface with, depart from, these traditional or Western ways of conducting scientific inquiry?
You want me to start? Yeah, okay. So I think that when I first started work talking about co-production of knowledge or partnering with Indigenous people, it was, and still sometimes is, talked about as Indigenous knowledges are anecdotal. They're based on observations, which apparently for some reason are anecdotal, even though scientific academic observations are considered what goes in research papers. And so I think there's an important shift in the mind that Indigenous knowledges and sciences just come from a different way of knowing. It comes from a different knowledge system. I'm going to jump into philosophy of science a little bit. Comes from a different epistemological system, ontological system, way of knowing, way of being, axiological system, a different value system. And through that, we see these different cosmographies, a different way of understanding the human relationship with the natural world. And so when you have a completely different perspective underpinning the scientific approach, so for example, in my culture, we see humans as one part of the ecological system, only one, not above or more important than. And so the human, the lake, the river, the deer, all of these are parts of the ecological system. And when I look at a sustainable planet, it's a planet with planetary health where the natural world has just as much health as the human world. And both are dependent on each other, and both are respecting one another. And that's Indigenous, that's a core value of Indigenous science. I would never look at animal health to only inform human health. I would never look at environmental health to only be concerned about the water I drink. I would also be concerned about how much water I was taking through the lake and how that's impacting other animals that rely on the lake. And so if you think that the science is just coming from another approach, it's no less valid. It doesn't need to be validated by an academic or by a researcher. But that you can engage in pluralism. You can engage in bringing multiple ways of knowing into your research and honestly have better data. Like, how many papers talk about how much better data they have when they draw on multiple ways of knowing, or instead of using a discrete time in the field, they draw on the centuries of people who have lived in that area and the knowledge that they share. And when we engage with our communities, you hear about the questions that we already know the answers to. It's not, just do you want to fish, but like, I think I need to research this. The community's like, oh, well, we know the answer to that question. We're not concerned about that at all. But that's often totally ignored. And at the funder level, it's already been funded. And you show up ready to do it. And so this is, two different systems. And it creates these different power structures. It creates disciplinary silos. And those disciplinary silos come into an Indigenous space where all things are connected. And so it's difficult to have an environmental science project not also involve a health researcher, not also involve someone who looks at economics or other things like that. Or if you're looking, I often have discussions of frustration with that someone wants to do research on the ocean, but they're completely ignoring the river and the forest where the salmon are traveling in all these places. And it's these interconnected systems. And so when we look at Indigenous science, it's not just holistic. I don't like using that word. It makes it as if it's some religious thing that we can disregard. It's not. It is literally the definition of sustainability, this circular ecological system. And we share more in common than we differ. It's just being willing to broaden the perspective that you were raised in, to realize that many of us are raised in one perspective but go to school to learn another. So we grow up with pluralism and ways of knowing, and it's just asking for the same for those who are coming to work with us.
Okay. Creo que hay que partir de un punto donde hay que dejar de romantizar y poner en un altar a los pueblos indígenas. Sí, estamos en lucha, en constante trabajo, sí, pero también hay que entender de que no son territorios estables constantemente. O sea, no hay algo que es puro, definitivo. Entonces, partiendo de ese punto, es importante entender que las categorías de ciencia indígena, ciencia transdisciplinaria y otros términos que no nacen en los pueblos indígenas, porque no están en lengua indígena, como se darán cuenta, son categorías que son muy válidas, sí, porque nos sirven como herramienta para los pueblos indígenas sentarnos en la mesa y dialogar con la ciencia. Es decir, estamos predisponiéndonos a que lo que la mesa se llama ciencia, imaginemos que es una cita romántica, la mesa donde nos vamos a sentar a generar ese vínculo se llama ciencia. Y la ciencia que ustedes han aprendido, la forma de generar ese vínculo, de tratar al otro, son las estructuras, los sistemas, los modelos. Y nosotros, los pueblos, los territorios, tenemos nuestra propia forma de hacer ese romance, esa relación, ese vínculo. Entonces, pero nos predisponemos a sentarnos en la mesa que se llama ciencia. Nos sentamos con ustedes y dialogamos. Para eso que les decía, ¿no? Predisponernos a, juntos, los sectores históricamente no escuchados, a generar mayor fuerza, porque eso es lo que se necesita. Generar mayor vínculo para tener mayor fuerza, para que nuestras acciones conjuntas tengan mayor impacto. Entonces, cuando hablamos de las categorías como ciencia, indígena, transdisciplinaria, es la mesa que nos hemos predispuesto a dialogar con ustedes, porque, como decía en un principio, entendiendo que los territorios son territorios no totalmente estables, tenemos nuestras discusiones internas propias. Hasta ahora el consenso es que tenemos sistemas de conocimientos y sabidurías de los pueblos indígenas ancestrales o pueblos antiguos. Pero es algo que seguimos discutiendo porque son categorías modernas, contemporáneas. Como decía aquí mi hermana, nosotros entendemos de otra forma el conocimiento. Ni siquiera he leído en algún momento eso de compactado, articulado. Nosotros en algún momento en territorio decimos, es que es un enredo, es maraña, enredado. Entonces estamos nosotros discutiendo cómo nosotros comunicamos a otros espacios, porque son otros lenguajes, otras formas de relacionarnos. Que existe esta predisposición y que también la ciencia ha ayudado a generar estas condiciones. Tal así como él sería generar estas condiciones para que tengamos este diálogo, igual la ciencia se predispone. Y creo que eso es algo que hay que valorar de la comunidad científica. Y es como no bajen los brazos, sigan con ese esfuerzo, que también por nuestra parte hay un esfuerzo para sentarnos en la mesa y seguir dialogando y seguir generando ese vínculo.
All right, thank you so much. Another round of applause, maybe, yeah. I was sharing some very, very helpful, useful, good thoughts. Okay, I think we have time for one more question for our panelists, and then we have some questions from the audience. I think we've got time for one and one. So what strategies are essential in partnering with Indigenous peoples to ensure ethical, respectful, and responsible scientific research? This is a... How can you answer this in 4 minutes each? Best try. Okay.
¿Qué estrategias? Tenemos que partir, y quiero tomar lo comunicado acá por el hermano Sergio. La comunicación es muy importante. Vamos a partir de allí. Trabajar dos lenguajes diferentes. El lenguaje de la ciencia visto desde el enfoque académico tiene sus procedimientos. El enfoque de la ciencia desde los pueblos indígenas son un conjunto de saberes. ¿Qué necesitamos? Una comunicación para poder integrar la información y que al final podamos generar resultados en beneficio de la humanidad. Porque es en nuestros territorios en donde está esa semilla nativa que cura enfermedades, es donde encontramos las plantas medicinales, pero para eso necesitamos una comunicación muy importante, la participación. 1. 2, en las academias tenemos muchos jóvenes, muy importante la participación de los jóvenes, la participación de mujeres y que vayan conectando con esa sabiduría indígena. La mujer es sagrada. Para nosotros la mujer es la que da vida. La mujer, y retomando nuevamente el ejemplo que les tenía hace un instante con respecto a que vivo alrededor del mar, el océano para nosotros es abuela. La tierra es madre. Y por lo tanto, la mujer en sí es sagrada porque nos alimenta, nos provee, nos ofrece todo lo que necesitamos. Entonces, ir aprendiendo esos conceptos y que la nueva generación igualmente conecte la información con nosotros, vamos a tener unos próximos años definitivamente mucho más sostenibles. ¿Por qué? Porque estaremos trabajando desde el respeto, desde los valores, como decíamos al inicio. Eso es importante. Y, por último, lo importante de pedir permiso, el consentimiento libre, previo, informado, que nosotros, los pueblos indígenas, pues nos basamos mucho en ese derecho indígena internacional de que pues es importante solicitar permiso previamente, de que los pueblos o inclusive conozcan entre sí los objetivos que se va a realizar, cuál es el producto que queremos obtener al final, las metodologías que no sean agresivas a la naturaleza, que no dañen las especies que están en vulnerabilidad. Es importante. Entonces nosotros trabajamos la ciencia desde el cuidado, desde la protección y para que eso permanezca hasta generaciones futuras.
Okay. No, thank you so much. I think I will just pick up from where she stopped from,
Okay.
collaboration. I'll just give a few practical examples from my own student and from my own personal life. Growing up, I know what my parents give me when I'm sick. Malaria is very common in Africa. That's indigenous knowledge. Nobody needs to come to my community to teach me that. So currently, what I do with my students is that look at your community. Nobody knows your community better than you. It's collaboration. I remember one of my colleagues also gave me an example that in an ethnic group in Canada, the position when you are asking a question, I can't look at my elder like this. It's disrespect. But if I'm a member of the community, I understand I need to sit this way. These are things that you cannot read in textbook. So there's nobody that can study that community better than me. These are practical examples. This is collaboration. This is you telling them what is the problem in the community, understanding the problem from the community's perspective, not from the funders that wanted to do a research about food security. Yeah, so that's actually one of the best approach. Respect. I currently supervise students in my country of origin, Nigeria, as well as in South Africa. The dynamics are different with different ethnic groups. It's not one size fits all. Every community, indigenous knowledge is unique to each community. Problem is unique to each community. These are some of the practical steps. These are the issues we need to understand as researchers, that we are not going to give them fishes, we are not going to teach them how to fish. That is not the way to go. It's about co-creation, co-development of the concept from the beginning, not the proposal that has been approved. Because now you force the proposal on the community. You need to write a report, so you have to force it to achieve the objective. It's about co-development. If it's co-developed, it can be amended. I remember Ada speaking that questionnaire is not finalized, it's dynamic. You change it as you go because things are different on ground. These are practical examples that we must incorporate as researchers. At the end of the day, nobody needs to tell you that the feedback needs to go back to the community. If it's developed for the community, it's inherent. It has to go back to the community. These are practical steps. These are things that will actually make an impact. My students, I tell them, after your research, what will your community remember about your research? What is the impact? If you're part of the community, you've done the research, and it solves one problem, nobody will forget you in that community. And the idea my professor also taught me is that your research, you must be able to explain it to your grandmother. She must understand why am I sending you to school? What is the contribution? Local community, indigenous communities, where we all grew up from. These are just some of the practical steps. These are some of the approaches that it just happens naturally if it's done and approached in that way, whereby it's about impacting the community. I think I can stop there for now. Maybe some question will come up later. Thank you.
Well, we do have a question from the audience. It's gonna take us on a whole journey in 9 minutes, which I will pitch now. The question that I'm about to ask should and could be its own panel, should and could be its own conference. We have a question about data sovereignty. And so this question says, I would appreciate panelists' perspectives on data sovereignty as it relates to linking data, data interoperability, and data building, data governance / resilience. I'm interested in tensions raised by calls for open by default. So that is a lot to answer. I think maybe in the time we have, if we can, and I think this will spark further conversation outside of this session, which is exactly what we want. So I'm wondering if everyone on the panel could maybe in a couple minutes say a few things about data sovereignty, data governance, data sharing. What are the important things that you think folks need to know?
Bueno, sí. En el tema de la data, la información estadística que se va generando en la investigación. Cuando desde un inicio se han seguido los procedimientos necesarios, las comunidades apoyan la investigación. Pero si no ha partido desde estos protocolos que se requieren, y sí me gustaría tomar ese tema, rescatar ese tema, es importante que las universidades y estas comunidades con quien quieran crear lazos desarrollen o inicien desde el levantamiento o la elaboración de los protocolos comunitarios. ¿Cómo vamos a desarrollar una investigación? ¿Cuál va a ser el procedimiento? ¿Qué metodología vamos a usar? ¿Qué vamos a hacer con los datos estadísticos? Esto se elabora en conjunto, en comunidad, bajo la aceptación de los pueblos indígenas y tengan por seguro que el manejo de la data es posible, porque dentro de la gobernanza indígena no estamos negados, no estamos, queremos compartir nuestra sabiduría, queremos transmitir, pero hay procedimientos. Y así como nosotros, para todo pedimos permiso, le pedimos permiso a la naturaleza. Si queremos obtener de allí algún elemento que sea beneficio para todos, pedimos permiso para todo. Entonces, pienso que eso se puede traducir al colaborar con universidades como, nuevamente, el respeto, la colaboración, el apoyo, y tengan por seguro que se generan muy buenas investigaciones, porque en efecto los he visto.
Yo quisiera ahí generar el aporte de, tejiendo con lo que dice la hermana Rubiela, pensar, si bien la data es un término al cual nos referimos a la información organizada, articulada, ordenada, yo creo que el conocimiento en general, no solamente hablando de la data, el problema no es que no se quiera restringir o compartir, como dice Rubiela. El problema es para qué se usa. O para cuál es el objetivo de la información. Entonces, ahí, tejiendo un poco con la pregunta anterior, creo que el tema, el asunto, es que hemos dejado de sentir aquí y está mucho aquí. Ya no estamos sintiendo la información. Esa información, para nosotros, que puede ser datos, pueden ser tejidos, puede ser la forma en que comemos, de qué nos sanamos, cómo caminamos, cómo vemos el mundo. Esa información tiene para nosotros lo que decimos en mi territorio ajayo, es decir, espíritu.
Sí.
Porque siente, es parte de ese sentir. Y lo que pasa es que cuando agarras solo y lo vuelves data, lo objetivizas, lo conviertes en objeto. Y ese es el problema, que nos hemos convertido en sociedades que objetivizan todo, hasta los cuerpos humanos. Son objetos. Entonces, ese es el asunto de la discusión. Que la data no puede ser solamente data, que esa data, como lo hemos dicho antes, no solamente está expresándose en nuestro cuerpo, sino que es información de nuestros territorios vivos, de las plantas, de los animales, de las montañas, de los lagos, de la abuela, de la madre, que se expresan a través de nuestro cuerpo. Y si tal vez es difícil para esto entenderlo, por lo menos respétenlo. Ese es el único punto, esa es la única línea. Esa es la soberanía. Si no entiendo, me es difícil entender por diferentes razones, por lo menos respétenlo. Nosotros queremos que eso siga existiendo, siga teniendo ese ajallo, ese sabor, ese gustito. Ese es para mí la soberanía y también cómo la data se puede dialogar o predisponernos a sentarnos en esa mesa que se llama ciencia, esa mesa que sea una mesa romántica, de un diálogo, con un interés, con un vínculo, y no solamente donde vamos a vender y comprar cosas.
I'll build on my brother and sister here. I want to extend this also beyond only Indigenous communities. Any community you're working with should own the knowledge about their community or the land they're on. In the US, we have this issue where the government wants to respect only the federally recognized tribes. It can be all Indigenous people. It can be the African American community you're working in. It can be the Latino community. And I think it's important that it comes down very basically to respect. I like Adeyemi's approach of a practical example. So I'm a social scientist, so I'm going to give a practical example that turns this picture around. So if your own family, generationally, we did a latitudinal study on your family, on mental health issues in your family, and it showed a predisposition to something in a specific familial line. Is that something that I could write about and publish on? Probably not, but that's what happens to our communities all the time. If our data is passed around and someone does a different study on it, that there was no consent for that data to be looked at that way. And so it's just, Sergio is saying it's so obvious. It's just being a human being and remembering that science is one way to see the world, but you're still a human being interacting with other human beings. And the things that are being talked about, the way we've been treated are not humane practices, and no one would want it to happen to their family. And it's just a very simple way to see it, I think.
Yeah. No, thank you so much. I think yeah, it's all about the motive. That's the core issue. Is it for my selfish purpose, or is it for the good of everybody? I think it's about respect, fairness. I think I can say it better than how it has been expressed. The motive. What is the motive behind the data we are curious about? Thank you.
Well, let's give it up for our panelists one more time. This was a great conversation. Thank you all so much for sharing so much of your experience and expertise with folks, and we hope we'll continue these conversations outside of this session. I do just want to turn this back over. I think we have some folks from the American Indian Center who are here to share some drumming and dancing with us. So I think that is the cue for Suzanne or someone to come and introduce
Oh, hi.
them. There you are.
I've been focused.
Okay.
Your wonderful conversations.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And shall we stay on the stage?
Sure.
Or? Okay, great.
If you want to. I'll step over here, though. I'm not in front of you. How's that?
Great.
So, thank you so much for an amazing conversation. I'm going to have to process it for a while, but I can tell you that the gifts you provided to me, one of my favorite is, what if they don't want to fish, right? It's our family, right?
Okay.
And the data is where it belongs. It's not objective. We're not objects, right? So my mind is full, and I look forward to processing it and figuring out, what does that mean for the science that I undertake? And how can I, as a communicator, work with other scientists so that they learn and embrace it in the work that they do? So I appreciate the incredible education you gave me this afternoon. I'm sure you all do too, right? So thank you for that deeply meaningful dialogue. I guess I'm just winging it here, so I'm going to wing it. There you go. But before we conclude, I want to personally invite you tonight to join the Way of the Rain. Hope for the Earth. It's a breathtaking multimedia performance that weaves music, visuals, and climate storytelling into a powerful call for connection and to action. This one-night-only performance features special guests including Tom Skilling, Andrea Darlis, and it takes place at 7:30 p.m. And it's right here in the Sheraton Chicago Riverwalk Ballroom. Seeing it is first come, first serve, but it includes popcorn, so you know, because we like popcorn with our movies here. And arrive early and bring a friend. It's a night you won't want to miss. Looking ahead to Wednesday, we're getting out and about. These organizations will take you behind the scenes in their venue to look at sustainability efforts from different community perspectives. Urban agriculture, green infrastructure, community-driven climate resilience. If you haven't signed up yet, now's the time. The sign-ups end at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. Whether you want to go to abandoned industrial properties where the wetlands have been rediscovered with the native seed banks still there, or you want to go and see a butterfly haven and then see pollination work and research that's being done there. Going out to an original nuclear test site sounds exciting, but it's also now nature, so it's called Nuclear to Nature for a reason. And several Juneteenth plenaries. One is a tour on the southeast side where we go to the Ton Farm, which is passed down through many generations as part of the Underground Railroad, and the African American Water Trail. Another Juneteenth event is the Des Plaines River, and it's called Two Sides of the Des Plaines River, right next to each other. Maywood, a low-income community, and then an upper-income community. So if you haven't signed up yet, please show the link and go forth. As we bring this powerful day to a close, we're honored to end in a spirit of connection, culture, and reflection. The American Indian Center of Chicago, established in 1953, is one of the oldest urban Native centers. Their mission is to foster understanding between Native and non-Native communities, promote cultural and economic advancement, and preserve Indigenous traditions and values here in Chicago. Please join me in welcoming them to the American Indian Center of Chicago as they help us close the evening with a performance rooted in tradition, community, and celebration. Thank you very much, and thank you to our panelists. We appreciate you.
Test 1, 2. Hello, everybody. Hey, all right. My name is Ronnie Preston. I'm with the American Indian Center of Chicago, where I am the cultural ambassador. And today, we're going to be giving you a few examples of our native style of dance. But before we begin, as traditionally, we wouldn't be able to do these presentations or these gatherings without our drum. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, our drum will give us a welcoming song. We have 3 different styles of dance from our women relatives that are gonna be giving you an example of each of their dance. We have the women's traditional dance. We have the women's jingle dress dance, which is a dance of healing. And we have the women's fancy shawl dance. And it is thought that these dancers represent the butterfly as it floats and dances. So these are our 3 ladies categories demonstration. Thank you. It's kind of cool. I want to turn around and look at myself on the monitor, but that's pretty neat, pretty cool. Well, again, thank you for inviting us here. Our last demonstration of the day will be our male categories. We have 2 different styles that are represented here. First, we have our men's Southern straight dancer. This is a dance that is done more towards the south by the southern tribes of the United States. My dance is called the grass dance. They say that the fringe and the ribbon and the yarn that I have on my regalia represents the grass blowing in the wind. So at this time, we'll give you a demonstration of the men's Southern straight and the men's grass dance. Well, they sang that song real fast. Which is a good thing, because that means we have time just for one more short dance. The circle that we live in is very important to us as Indigenous people. Like our culture, there is no beginning and there will be no end. We were once targeted for, they wanted to take us off the map as a race of people. Boarding schools, they took our children, cut their hair, beat them for speaking their own language, and the mass burial graves being found out through all over the place with these boarding schools. But as we stand here before you, wearing our eagle feathers and singing our song, you can see they did not succeed. We're still here. And in honor of that, we wish to do a round dance. One last word. You guys, that was really, really awesome. Thank you so much for coming out and joining our circle. It's been our honor to be here. Have a great day and a great rest of your night.